This is the third online class for multiculturalism and global perspective. Actually, for this class, we emphasize two key issues. One is the so-called culture or culturalism. But we are not just referring to one culture, taking the whole world as just one single culture. We are talking about multi means many. Actually, we all know different people have different cultures. Even though we are living in one planet, we are living in one globe. So that's the reason why we use the term multiculturalism. Each culture is unique. We should not argue in this manner. This culture is superior to the other culture. This culture is better than the other culture. We could only argue this culture is unique, is different. This culture differs from other culture. Okay, so culture is only a matter of difference, not a matter of superiority or inferiority. And then another key issue we will address in this class is so-called perspective. Perspective refers to point of view, refer to the way you see things. But given the fact that we all live in one village, we all live in one globe, so our view, our perspective needs to come from the perspective of the globe. In other words, global perspective. Okay, so this is the focus. And as I mentioned to you, global actually comes from the earth as a globe, as a ball. Okay, so no matter where we are, we should see all different kind of issues as globally related. For example, climate change. Climate change is not just an issue in Taiwan, in Indonesia, in India, in China. It's also an issue in Europe, in the United States. So it has become a global issue. This is what is meant by global. Okay, climate change is one good example. Of course, another good example could be the gap, the difference between the rich and the poor. Okay, the gap between wealth and poverty. And the gap, as we learn, is widening every year. And when the gap turns out to be too big, then this will cause a lot of political, social issues, problems. So the rich and the poor, the gap between the rich and the poor, the difference between the rich and the poor is another global issue, and we have to see the issue from a global perspective. This is just give you some ideas. And then before we start with this third online class, I would like to introduce a book called Our Underachieving College by Derek Bok. As you know, Derek Bok is the former president, 前任校长 of Harvard University. And Derek Bok did come up with an important and also influential book called Our Underachieving Colleges. The book has many translations, okay? Has been translated in many languages. And in Taiwan, we have a very good translation. Actually, the translation is sponsored by the founder of Asia University, called 大学教了没? Actually, in this, Our Underachieving Colleges, the former president, Professor Derek Bok, emphasized 8 different skills, 8 different competences that any young student today, any young person today need to develop, need to achieve of the 8 skiers, he in particular include 2 important skiers. The first skier is called foreign language. Okay? In my previous lecture, I also mentioned the importance of English language because English has become a lingua franca. A lingua franca means the world's common language. In many countries, English has been promoted either as an official language or as a first language. Even though in Taiwan, in Japan, or in Indonesia, for example, English still remains as a foreign language. But I foresee in the near future, English will be promoted as a second language in Taiwan. Actually, Taiwan government last year just announced a so-called a bilingual country policy, expecting by the year 2030, English will be used as a second language in Taiwan. So if your English is very good, you should not feel too proud of it because everybody's English is good. So English has become a common language, a lingua franca. In the past, we used to think, okay, English belongs to the American people. English belongs to the British people. English belongs to the Australians, the people in South Africa, for example, the people in Canada, for example. In other words, if you ask who owns English, thinking English as a company, you are the stakeholder. OK， 把英文当作一家公司，股票上市的公司。You are the stakeholder， 你是这个投资者股东。Our question is who owns English? In the past, I said people would say, okay, the West, America owns English, England owns English. My argument today would be nobody owns English. That means English belongs to everybody. So each of us owns English. So English should not be taken as a foreign language. English should be taken as a common language. So my advice to you is try to improve, to develop your English ability. If your English ability is good, congratulations. If not, try to improve it. But aside from English, you need to have one more foreign languages. In Taiwan, I know a lot of students will choose to learn Japanese because the close connection between Taiwan and Japan. Actually, if we look at the language landscape, which language is rising, which language remains about stable, and which language is falling, from my perspective, actually, Japanese is falling. It's not a rising language. In other words, imagine 50 years from now, Japanese might not be as important as it is today. So what languages are rising? Obviously, one rising language we all know is Mandarin, is Chinese. So Chinese is important. Lucky for us, we use Chinese as our first or official language in Taiwan. So everybody needs to have very good Chinese, competence. Aside from Chinese, I think, another important language, if we look at the language landscape, should be Spanish. Spanish could be the second important foreign language. Okay, a lot of people speak Spanish, even in the United States. Probably 1/3 of the population, more than 100 million population speak Spanish. Most countries in Central America and South America speak Spanish. Probably with the exception of Brazil, Brazil is a big country. also has huge population. But in Brazil, they speak Portuguese because Brazil was Portuguese colony. Spain too. Spain is a big country in Europe. Okay, Spain speak Spanish. So if you think about Spanish, probably we have 500 million, 600 million 5六亿 the speaking population. So I try to, learn Spanish as your foreign language. Don't forget, in Southeast Asia, Bahasa Indonesia,印尼文, is a very important foreign language. And my experience with this language is, it's easy to learn. Imagine how many people in Indonesia, more than 265 million, 26500,000. How about people in Malaysia? What kind of language do they speak? Of course, they speak Malay, Malayu. But actually, Bahasa Indonesia, Indonesian language is Malay, the same language. So for a Malaysian person and an Indonesian person, if they get together, they can easily communicate because they speak almost the same language. Like a Taiwanese, when he travels to Phuket, if he speaks Phukenese, okay? If he have conversation with a Phukenese, they can almost understand each other about the same language. Okay, about the same language. So if you are thinking about major important language, you can think about Spanish. If you are thinking about more Asian related language, you can think about Bahasa Indonesia. Of course, another important language is Arabic. Arabowen. Arabic is also a major foreign language. So just bear in mind, English, of course, you must be good. Chinese, you must be good. But aside from Chinese and English, you need to have another foreign language. Of course, at Asia University, as you might know, we also emphasize another important language, but it's not a foreign language. It's called programming language. Programming language in Chinese, 程式语言, is the language for you to communicate, to talk with machine, with robots, with computers. And that is the language of the 21st century. Okay? So you can choose to learn a foreign language aside from English. You can also choose to learn, programming language. So this is one important competence according to Derek Bock. Another important competence is here. And this is what this class is about. Global mobility. Mobility means the ability to move around. If you take up your cell phone, this is called mobile phone. Why mobile? Because you can carry the phone around. Whenever you go, you just carry it, move along with you. So this cell phone is called mobile phone. Actually, global mobility means you yourself can walk around, travel around everywhere. Okay? So if you need to travel around everywhere to develop your global mobility, of course, you need to have language ability, you need to have cultural literacy, you need to know more about, the difference between cultures. What we are emphasizing here, multiculturalism, okay? And I think for Derek Bock, these two competences are important. He called two key competences for today's higher education, for today's university, and point out that we are living in a more global society. That's the reason why we need to have a foreign language. We need to have global mobility because we are living in a more global society. Of course, the concept globalization, 全球化, brings good to human beings, or just the opposite, and has remained, in debatable all the time. Like the virus that is happening now, the coronavirus, okay, COVID-19 virus. It happens all because of globalization. So people, even before the breakout of this virus, people begin to doubt about the argument of globalization. But this is not something we are going to dwell on. We are going to talk about for this class now. Okay? And for today, actually, I want to focus one of two important chapters of this book. The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman. Thomas Friedman is a very well-known, respected journalist. Okay, journalists. He often writes for New York Times. Okay, he often writes for the so-called prestigious journals, newspapers. And actually, the author himself has been to Taiwan more than once. I remember he has been to Taiwan twice, talking about his idea of globalization. Actually, this is the Chinese translation, 世界视频, the original title, The World is Flat. And this book, for all its, good argument and poor argument, this book has remained a classic in terms of globalization, in terms of, global perspective, in terms of global mobility. In other words, when people today talks about globalization, when people today talks about global mobility, they usually would quote or use The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman as a good example. Actually, the book was written more than 15 years ago, but even it's not a new book, it still remains a classic in terms of globalization. So I would like to start with how the author conceived the book. In other words, the beginning chapter of the book, okay, the title is called While I Was Sleeping. This is the title of chapter 1 of the book. But in this particular chapter, the author talks about how the book was conceived. In other words, how he designed the book. Thomas Friedman, actually, in the very beginning of this chapter, imagined himself as a modern-day Columbus. We will talk a little bit about Columbus later on. But Thomas Friedman, thinking he himself is a 21st century Columbus. Okay? And we know Columbus had 4 voyages trying to reach from Europe to India. Okay? He underwent 4 voyages, 4次航行. And the first voyage starting from the year 1492. Actually, this year is historical significant, is historically important. This is the very year when Christopher Columbus started his voyage trying to reach India. For what? For gold, for spice, for pearl, okay, for silk. In his 4 voyages, okay, of course, Columbus, before he died, he never knew. He did not reach India as he had expected. He believed when he landed in today's Central America, okay, within the view of North America, he believed he reached India already. So he, got off the boat and then have some good contact with local people and call the local people Indians. This is a so-called a beautiful mistake made by Columbus. So today, we call the people in Central America, the so-called indigenous people, the natives, as Indians. But if we call them as Indians, we confuse the people with the people in India. So to make some distinction, we call those people with Indians, and the people in India simply Indians. So this is a beautiful mistake made by Columbus. And we know when Columbus started the voyage, actually Columbus was born in today's Italy. At that time, Italy was not an independent state, was not an independent country. Italy was very small. Okay, so Columbus could not get any help, any support from his own country. Instead, he sought the help of the monarchy of Spain, 西班牙国王, okay, Queen Isabella, Queen Ferdinand, okay, King Ferdinand, Queen Isabella, and he brought along with him just 3 boats, 3 ships, Nina, Pinta, Santa Maria. The 3 boats he took along with him for the voyage, and he traveled from Europe to East. They call westbound, 往西行啊, okay, through the Atlantic Ocean. The destination is India, and his purpose is to seek gold, silver, silk, spice, even slaves. Okay, this is what happened to Columbus. And of course, Columbus didn't reach India as he had planned, but he made an important discovery, because starting from the year 1492, the West began to expand to the rest of the whole world and started the age of West colonization. So the West colonization, the Western people, expand, travel around the world to colonize, all started in the year 1492. And Freeman imagined he himself is a modern day Columbus. Instead, he didn't take the boat. He took, Lufthansa flight, 德航, okay? He bought a business class, and he traveled not westbound but eastbound. And his destination is also India. So you see the similarity. He also tried to reach India. Columbus tried to reach India for gold, for silver, for silk, for spice. But Thomas Freeman tried to reach India to discover what India has. Then, to his great surprise, he came to realize India has software, have brain power, have precision calculation, have outsourcing. He believed if the United States, if the West did not wake up to face the reality, very soon India and later China will replace the West, will replace the United States, okay, to take over all the important jobs. That is the reason why he started the book, Imagine himself as a modern day Columbus. And I think the beginning of the book is quite fascinating, it's quite interesting. 2 different, person, one living in the 15th century, one living in the 20th and 21st century. And they have the same destination, India. Okay, one is to seek gold and silver. Okay? One is to find, to discover a brain power software. So this is what I just mentioned. Columbus, born in the year 1451, died in the year 1506. Okay. Even today, Columbus has been remembered as one of the most important explorer, 冒险家, to discover the world. Okay, through his effort, North America was discovered. So through his effort, actually, even though he did not reach India, he found a new continent. That's the so-called North, America. Okay, and that's what happened to Columbus. Give you some idea about Columbus. He's an explorer, okay, and born in northwestern Italy, called Genoa, okay, and under the support of the Catholic monarchs of Spain, I just mentioned, he sought help from the King and Queen of Spain, Queen Isabel, King Ferdinand, okay. He completed 4 voyages across the Atlantic Ocean, okay? And his effort led to general European awareness of the American continent in the Western Hemisphere. In the past, the Western people didn't know, the European people didn't know there was a big continent in the Western Hemisphere, okay? So because of his efforts, he started the so-called process of Spanish colonization, 西班牙殖民. And that is the reason why, in South America, in Central America, as I said before, probably with the exception of Brazil, all the people there speak Spanish, okay? And this is the map of his 4 voyages, okay? Starting the first one, okay, you see, this is Gulf of Mexico, okay? Before he reached America, North America, he always returned. This is today's, Central America. So he believed he had reached India, but actually just North America. So you can argue he's an explorer, but he did not have very good geographical knowledge, okay? Sorry about this. Okay, so this, what happened to Columbus, okay? Columbus landed, as I said, in the so-called Bahama archipelago, 群岛, Bahama Island, okay? At the place he named San Salvador, 圣萨尔瓦多. It's a country now, okay? So it's a mistake. He made a beautiful mistake. He saw he had reached India, but actually he just arrived in Bahama Island. But his efforts helped establish the so-called Spanish Empire. So you know, the modern empire started with the Spanish Empire. In the past, we have the Roman Empire. In China, we also have the Han Empire. We have Chen Empire. But in modern day, in Europe, the first empire is called the Spanish Empire. After Spanish, we have the Portuguese. After Portuguese, we have the Dutch. After the Dutch, we have the French, the German, the British, the English. And then in the 20th century, we have the Russian Empire with the American Empire, okay? So empire, in each century or in each age, we have different empire. And the Spanish Empire actually was the very first empire of modern Europe. Don't forget, the Spanish people even traveled to Taiwan to colonize the island. And later on, of course, the Spanish people were expelled by the Dutch from the south to the north. So in Danshui, we have a place called Chen. Actually, Chen was established, was built by the Spanish. Okay, in today's Keelung, near Yilan, we have a cape called San Diao Jiao. San Diao Jiao in Spanish is San Diego. So I just mentioned these two historical facts to show that even the Spanish people travel to Taiwan to colonize Taiwan. So Taiwan was colonized by the Spanish too. Another good example is the Philippines. The Philippines, okay? Now, in the Philippines, they speak English because later, after the Second World War, Philippines was occupied, was colonized by the American people. So they start to learn, American English. But the Philippines actually was colonized by the Spanish for more than 3 centuries. So the name itself, the Philippines itself, the name itself, actually, how come the people there were called the Philippines? In memory of the Spanish king, King Philip. So the Philippines were referred to as the subjects of King Philip, okay? And when Thomas Freeman arrived in India, actually, the very person he wanted to see is this person, Nathan Lakakani. Who is this person? Nathan Lakakani. Actually, he was the CEO of Infosys. Okay? Infosys. If you have no idea about Infosys, imagine Taiwan Semiconductor, Taiji Taiwan Semiconductor is number 1, not just in Taiwan, also number 1 in the whole world in terms of semiconductor, And this Infosys is the equivalent of Taiji in India. And this person, okay, Nalikani, at that time was the CEO, okay, 执行长. And when this person and Thomas Freeman met, actually, Thomas Freeman, because he wanted to discover what India has, so he planned a meeting with this person. Then this CEO, in their conversation, told Thomas Freeman, the playing field is being leveled. Level means flattened, 把它铲平了. And that is the reason why, the book was named The World is Flat. That's where the book gets the title. In other words, that's the inspiration of the book and the inspiration for the title of the book. So don't forget, Thomas Freeman in chapter 1 also talks about how come he named the book The World is Flat. How come the book gets this kind of title, okay? And also in the book, in the very beginning chapter, Thomas Freeman talks about 3 different periods, 3 great eras. Eras means period, stages of globalization. And this displays Thomas Freeman's historical view about the whole world, okay? Before, he did write a book called The Lexus, 林志汽车, and The Olive Tree, okay? And this is the book we are discussing, okay? And many scholars, many experts believe these 2 books constitute 组合而成 Thomas Freeman's broad historical view about the world. In other words, his historical perspective. And in the book, Thomas Friedman roughly divides globalization into 3 different eras. The first era he called globalization 1.0. The second called globalization 2.0. The third called globalization 3.0. But I believe if Thomas Friedman decides to rewrite the book today, he might include globalization 4.0, starting from the use of AI today. Okay? So the 3 eras of globalization. The first era of globalization, he called globalization 1.0, actually, starting from the year 1492 again, the year when Columbus took the voyage to explore the world to roughly 1800. This is called globalization 1.0. The key point is the world shrank from a size large to size medium. I think large and medium you're quite familiar with. If you go to Starbucks asking for some coffee, you will order, okay, large or medium or small, okay? And according to Thomas Friedman, because of this globalization, the world, okay, shrank, 缩小, from size large to size medium, okay? And in this era, what is important is, the importance is your muscle, okay, your horsepower, okay, your wind power, and later on your steam power. In other words, whether your country is strong, is big or not, depends on whether if your country has the horsepower, has the big muscle, has the wind power, has steam power. That is the reason why the Industrial Revolution got started in Europe, especially in England, in the UK, because you remember James Watt invented the steam engine in the 18th century, rather in the year 1770s. And then globalization 2.0, actually, in this era, the world has shrunk from size medium to size small, okay? And the key factor are the so-called multinational companies, okay? Global markets, okay? These are key factors. In other words, the state, the nation is not the driving force, but the multinational, okay? Company like Google, company like IBM, company like, Huawei, for example, they has become the dynamic force in this era, okay? From 1800 to 2000. And then the third era is called globalization 3.0. Actually, in this era, the world is shrinking from a size small to a size tiny. Tiny is very, very small, okay? And what is important is the individual becomes the driving force, becomes the dynamic force. Could you imagine Ma Yun in China? He was an English teacher before, but just within a few years, he has now become the most wealthy person in China. Imagine the founder of Facebook, a university student, so young, suddenly has become the most wealthy person in the United States. So the individual in this era, the individual becomes the driving force, okay? So this is important. And of course, Thomas Friedman ends the first chapter with these 3 different eras of globalization. But actually, as I mentioned, because the book was written about 15 years ago. If he wants to rewrite or expand the book, I believe he will have a term called globalization 4.0, starting from probably 2010 to the present, when artificial intelligence has been, re-employed in all kind of fields as the driving force for manufacturing, for change in society. Okay, so for this class, I just use, the first chapter of Thomas Freeman's important book, The World is Flat, to give you some idea about what is meant by globalization in terms of Thomas Freeman. And for our next lecture, actually, I'm going to talk about the 10 forces that, according to Thomas Freeman, has helped to make the world flat, has helped to flatten the world. Thank you.